All right, guys, so finally a pay comparison video. I haven't done this in a long time. I'm so excited about this. I'm gonna be taking 3 drivers today and I'm gonna show you what they've made in March 16th to March 31st. So this is the most recent paycheck that I have out there. It's gonna be released in a couple of days to the drivers, but I wanted you to have a look on what these owner operators are making with the updated fuel surcharge. So I got a lot of phone calls into the office. I am in touch with about 2,500 drivers and I've received an influx of calls into my office asking me about the fuel surcharges. So I decided to make a video on it. There are a couple of problems with the phone calls that I get. So there's a common denominator between them. So there are owner operators that are panicking based on today's new fuel prices. And what I see happening is that they're looking at their last paycheck and they're looking at today's fuel prices. But the problem is that their last paycheck does not reflect today's fuel prices. Well, today I'm going to be showing you a pay statement for March 16th to the 31st, and it has the updated fuel surcharge. So owner operators are getting today in our company 33 cents fuel surcharge on every single mile that they drive. So let's compare. Are these drivers making more money? Are these drivers making less money? Well, you'll see it in these pay statements. How is your company treating fuel surcharge? Are you getting paid what you're supposed to be getting paid with today's hike of fuel surcharge? So you should be making a lot more than you were making 2, 3, 4 months ago. You should be making at least 20 to 25 cents more per mile, just in the difference of the fuel being at $4 per gallon versus the fuel being at $5 per gallon, which is what it is right now as a national average. It is coming down a little bit, but we're still seeing $4.80, $4.90, nothing like it was 6 months ago or even 4 months ago. One more thing I want to touch on is I'd like to talk to you guys about the fuel cap. So a lot of drivers that I meet, they work for companies that have a fuel cap. So in Canada, they'll be paying 75 cents per liter or 50 cents per liter. And they're like, oh, I don't care what the fuel surcharge is. But I want you to know that, every company pays owner operators differently. But at the end of the day, you need to be matching your bottom line figures. And that's why I post these figures out there, because I'd like to educate and I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's happening in the market. Okay, I meet a lot of drivers that are being taken advantage of, and that was the entire and the whole point of this channel, is to stop the things that are happening in the industry that are not right and making awareness for all you truck drivers out there. That's the point of this channel, and if you would want to come on board with us, make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. It's time that people stop taking advantage of truck drivers, stop taking advantage of owner operators, and our industry needs to get cleaned up a little bit. So right before I get into the pay statements, I'd like to talk to you about my friends over at eCapital. They are the largest factoring company here in Canada, and they are the 4th largest company in the US. If you are looking for freight factoring services, there's a link down below. Just fill out your form and it will go straight to them. So why are they so awesome? So in a nutshell, number 1, their fees are between 1 to 2.5%. The second thing is no reserves. You give them an invoice, they pay you minus their fees with no reserves. Number 3 is no recourse. So if they don't get paid, that's their problem, not yours. You sold your invoice, it's not your problem anymore. And the 4th thing is there's no startup cost, which is unbelievable. You could just reach out to them. There is a managing partner there. His name is Oscar. If you fill out the form below, he will call you personally, or I'll link his contact information below so you can reach out to him directly. And now let's get back to those pay statements. So the first paycheck that I'm going to be sharing with you is an owner operator who is in our van reefer division. Let's have a look over his pay. I did have to blur out his name and his unit number. So let's look over this pay statement. So this pay statement is paying him for the miles that he ran between March 16th to March 31st. The owner operator ran 7,874 miles. You might think that this is a lot of miles in 16 days because it's March 16th to the 31st. But when you have loaded trailers at both ends, and when you have loaded trailers here at our yard, and also a lot of our customers in the US, when you have loaded trailers, it's not that hard to get up to 75, even up to 8,000 miles. So you can see here by the second page, we'll go over the second page first. You see that the base rate is $1.55 per mile. And over here at the top of the pay, you see that the fuel surcharge hit 33 cents per mile. Okay, so when you take $1.55 and you add 33 cents to it, so a combined rate of $1.88 per mile. Okay, now let's look over some of the runs that he drove. So here he is. He starts off in Concord, Ontario, which is where our terminal is. He heads over to Atlanta, Georgia to Columbus, Georgia, and then Columbus, Georgia back to Concord. The second trip he did was a round trip Blaine, Minnesota, back to the GTA, and then from the GTA he did a round trip to Missouri, came back and did another run to Atlanta, Georgia, and then from Atlanta, Georgia he went to Tennessee, picked up the load, and came back to Concord, Ontario. So 7,874 miles was his total miles. Now, I don't like companies that have a different rate per mile for loaded miles and empty miles. We pay the same, both the rate per mile at $1.55 plus the 33 cents per mile fuel surcharge is what the driver gets paid both on empty and loaded miles. Now, you can see here from the pay that the driver grossed out $14,900. He did have deductions for disability insurance, buy down insurance, and $7,000 Canadian of fuel. So that is, he did fill up in the US, it's converted to Canadian dollars, and the driver took home $7,473 net to his pocket. So again, this is a 15-day pay statement. This is owner operator number one. So you can see that the driver made $1.88 per mile, and all of his expenses are paid for. When I say all of his expenses, I'm talking about tolls, bridges, faxes, scans, insurance, plates. All those expenses, on-road expenses, are paid for this driver. He takes home $1.55 per mile plus the fuel surcharge. Okay, let's get into driver number two, owner operator number two. So he grossed out, he did 7,279 miles. Okay, so those are both empty and loaded miles. The driver grossed out $13,705. Also got the 33 cents per mile for fuel surcharge. Let's go over his routes now. I'm gonna skim through this. So basically, he did a round trip to Wisconsin. If you'd like, you can pause this video to get the actual mileage and the routes. He did a round trip to Wisconsin, then he did a round trip to Georgia, then he did a round trip to Illinois, then he did another round trip to Missouri, and another round trip to Illinois. Okay, so that's how he accumulated 7,279 miles. Now, you're probably thinking these are high mileage drivers. You're right, these are drivers that produce miles, but again, a lot of their trailers are loaded here in the yard, and this is a driver, an owner operator in our van reefer division. So that's how much money he's made, and now I saved the best for last. But before we get into that, I just want to explain fuel surcharge and how it works. So I do have a printout here of a chart. I'd like to go over this chart with you before I get into the last pay. The chart basically compares three different types of trucks. So let's look into this chart that I've created, and I'm going to explain to you how this works. At the top, you have your miles per gallon. The first couple of columns are 5.5 miles per gallon and 6 miles per gallon. So these are more of your flat nose trucks. So the W900s, the Coronados, anything, the Peets, the 379 Peets with a flat nose. So those are the trucks that are getting 5.5, 6, and 6 miles per gallon. Now the 7.5 miles per gallon are usually your older, your 16, 17, 18s, maybe 15s, 14s, your Volvos, your Cascadias, and then you have your 8 to 9 miles per gallon, which are usually your aerodynamic trucks. They are your newer Volvos, newer Cascadias, and your newer T680 next gens. And what this chart does is it tells you as an owner operator how much it costs you to run your truck per mile. So when the fuel was $4, and if your truck was running at 7 miles per gallon, it was costing you 57 cents per mile to run a truck. Well, now that the fuel is $5 per gallon as a national average, it's costing you today 71 cents per mile to run your truck. So this chart is great for you to see if the company that you're working for, if they are paying you the fuel surcharge based on today's fuel versus yesterday's. So if you're only getting 4 or 5 cents more, well, that's not cutting it. It's cutting into your profits, okay? If you're getting an extra 17 or 18 cents, then yes, it's covering you the increase that the fuel has gone up. your company is covering you for the fuel surcharge. Now, if your truck is doing 5.5 miles per gallon, you might be coming out at a loss because the company will not be paying you an extra 20 or 30 cents per mile because your truck is consuming 5.5 miles per gallon. So, great chart. Let's get into our last paycheck, but great chart for you to look at what it's costing you today to run a mile. Our last unit, driver drove 8,053 miles. So this is the statement from March 16th to the 31st. You can see here that the driver got $2,600 in fuel surcharge, which is at 33 cents per mile. He did get a clean inspection, so he got $50 for that. And then you can see here all the deductions: $300 for holdback, buy down insurance, fuel Canadian, fuel US. He did have $128 in cash advance, and then he paid for $166 for an invoice for some sort of truck repair. He netted $8,060. Before we get into what he netted, let's look at some of his round trips. So here he is. He starts in the GTA in Concord, Ontario. He does a round trip to Wisconsin. Then he does another round trip to Georgia. Then he does another round trip to Wisconsin, and then does another round trip to Texas, and another round trip to Texas, and then came back to Concord, and that's where it ends. So 8,053 miles is what this driver did in 16 days. His net pay is $8,060. So you can see roughly about $1 per mile is what this driver netted, what he took home. So very important is, why do I create these videos? I create these videos for you guys out there to see that if the companies that you're working for, if they are paying today's rates, there's a lot of drivers that I meet that are still getting paid 55 cents per mile, or they're still working as owner operators for $1.25 per mile. And I get these calls all the time, and I tell these drivers, why in the world are you working for $1.25 per mile? How are you surviving getting paid $1.25 per mile? Yes, I understand you have a fuel cap at 75 cents per liter, or $1 per gallon is what you're paying. But still, if you look at today's competitive wages, you should be getting a lot more than that $1.25 or $1.50 per mile. At the end of the day, it's the bottom line figure. What are you taking home? Are you making $6,000, $7,000 every 15 days? If you're an owner operator and you still have to pay for your truck, you should be making at least $6,000 to $7,000 every 15 days. I meet a lot of guys and I get a lot of statements sent to me just to look over people's pays. And if you'd like, I'm more than happy to look over your paycheck and just give you an analysis of what I think. But if you are making less than $6,000 or $7,000, you really need to find yourself a better company, or you need to go to wherever you're working and let them know that there are better paying jobs out there and they might match those rates. Okay. In today's world, you should be making, if you're an owner operator, you should be making $1.80 to $1.90 per mile with all of your expenses paid for. And yes, I do mean all, with your insurance, with your plates, with your tolls, bridges, and all of your on-road expenses is what you should be getting paid today. If you are getting paid less than that, then feel free to reach out to me and I will direct you to other companies that are hiring with much higher pay packages, or I can recommend a couple of things for you to do. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I haven't done a pay comparison video. Please guys, share this content and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying what I'm doing. I mean, there's 80-something thousand people that are subscribed to this channel. Okay, so obviously we're doing something right, and if you like this content, just leave a comment down below, give it a thumbs up. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely gonna like this video that I have over here that's all about recruiting scams. So all the scams that recruiters pull on truck drivers. If you love this video, you're definitely gonna love that video. Check that one out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Ronen, R-O-N-E-N, and hopefully I'll catch you in my next video.